Hello, my name is Kyung Song from Yonsei University. Actually, I'm an AI researcher working on generative models and causal inference in AI. Thanks to amazing collaborators such as Professor Sang-Hee Chu and Jae-Woon Jung and Hae-Sun Seo, I have recently been doing more medical research also, as well as pure AI itself. Recently, I have been studying about the causal relationship between the long COVID and the mental and physical healthcare. But that kind of work is still ongoing. Therefore, I prepared another topic focusing on the generative models and causal inference in health research or medical domain. In this presentation, I will explain what generative models are and how they work and how can you apply that kind of generative models to causal inference. Let's start with an interesting question. Which image is real? Here you see three images, right? Labeled A, B, and C. Consider which one looks like the most realistic. Actually, I couldn't answer I couldn't know the answer. But as you can guess, both three images are the synthetic data set generated by the generative models. Similarly, generative models can create text, right? Large language model is also one of the famous generative models, and as you can see, or as you know, LLMs also can create realistic text. All three text blocks are created by the generative models, such as LLM also. So, what are generative models formally? Let's quickly compare the learning method. In machine learning, we use different approach to learn from the dataset. The first one is supervised learning. Supervised learning uses the paired x, y input and output pair to learn a function that maps from x to target y. Another one is unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning learns the underlying pattern of the dataset. Then how about generative models? Generative models, however, learn the underlying density of the dataset from only some of the observed samples. In short, the goal of the generative models is to infer the population density from the sample dataset. In short, our goal is to get information about the P dataset, the ground truth dataset density. However, in the realistic setting, we usually do not about P dataset, right? We do not know the density about the human face, or we do not know the density about the cat image, right? But we can only access to the sum of the samples drawn from the P data density, right? We can only observe some of the image data set or some of the text or tabular data set. Then, what is the goal of the generative models? From the only sample data set, what we want is to construct or optimize our neural network to approximate the ground truth P data set. Okay? That is the goal of the generative models. Here, you see the black dots represent our observed samples. We do not know the population usually. We only know the observed samples only. From the observed samples, what we want is to approximate the population density, right? If we can estimate the population density, surely we can draw new samples from the population density. Therefore, when we successfully estimate the density, then we can generate realistic samples again and again that resemble the original data set. That is the generative models. Now you might wonder, why apply generative models to causal inference? In causal inference, it is critical to understand the full data distribution, such as a confounder or hidden confounder, right? And as I said earlier, generative models help us to achieve this by approximating the ground truth data distribution. In short, generative models is a powerful tool to understand the cause and effect estimation. Now let's transition to causal inference. A fundamental concept in causal inference is that correlation is not a causation. This graph shows the correlation between a country's FIFA ranking and country's COVID ranking. As you can see, countries with lower FIFA ranking, meaning better team at that time, tended to have a lower COVID ranking, meaning more cases. Does playing football cause COVID? Of course not. This is likely due to other factors such as a confounder. So it highlights why we need a causal inference instead of the correlation. The main task of causal inference is to estimate the treatment effect. We observe outcome for individuals who receive a certain treatment. But we want to know what would have happened if they received another treatment or no treatment. Actually, we cannot directly, or we cannot observe both of them. We can only observe one of them. Therefore, causal inference is not a trivial. Let's see an example. Imagine we have data set on patient condition, mild and severe condition, and treatment A and B, and the outcome, the mortality rate. This table summarizes the data set, right? We see the number of patients and the number of mortality person. If we just look at the total column, treatment A has a 16% mortality, while treatment B has 19% mortality. Based on this overall average, it seems that treatment A is better. But is this the correct conclusion? Now, let's look within each condition group. For patients with mild condition, treatment A has a 15% mortality, while B has a 10% mortality. How about severe condition? Treatment A has a 30% mortality and B has a 20% mortality. In short, when we analyze the mortality rate within each group, in that case, treatment B seems better. This reversal is called Simpson paradox. So, which treatment is actually better? To understand this, we use causal diagrams. Here, T is a treatment and C is a condition, mild or severe, and O is an outcome, mortality rate. And the arrow denotes the causal effect. Depending on how causal graph looks like, the result can be changed. That's why finding a right or correct causal graph is very important in the real world. But today, I'll focus on the estimating the causal effect instead of the causal graph discovery. So, in this case, let's assume the graph on the left is a correct one. In that case, the patient condition C, severe or mild, influence which treatment they receive. Perhaps sicker patients are more likely get treatment B. And the condition C also influence the outcome mortality rate, right? Severe condition lead to a more higher mortality rate. In this case, the variable C is a confounder that influences both treatment and outcome O simultaneously. As you know, in this graph structure, T and O are not independent. They are related. In short, when we change the treatment, then it also has effect on outcome O. In short, there is a backdoor path or confounding path that makes bias. In short, this diagram clearly shows there is a backdoor path between T to O through C. As you can see, there are two types of association in this slide. The first one, the red one, is a causal association. That is our target, the causal effect between treatment and outcome. And the second one is a backdoor path, the blue one, or backdoor path or the confounding path. This is a bias, and we need to remove to calculate the direct causal estimate effect only. Because of this confounding association or the backdoor path, simply comparing the mortality rate as a treatment T equal A and B is misleading. We need to perform adjustment for confounding C to remove the backdoor path. Then how can we remove that kind of backdoor path? The solution is very simple. We just calculate the conditional probability instead of just probability. As you know, in this figure, T and O are independent given condition C. That is all. In short, the formula denotes that we should calculate the mortality rate within specific group C, right? We should calculate, or we should estimate the causal effect within specific conditions. In short, we can remove the confounding path or the backdoor path just by conditioning C. Because we already have all of the information about the C in this case, right? We already have all of the information about the mild condition and severe condition, the number of patients who are mild and severe, right? We already have all of the information about the C in this case. Therefore, we can calculate the conditional probability. Mathematically, we estimate the causal effect using the adjustment formula derived by the Julia Pert professor through calculus. We want to calculate the expectation of the outcome O given 2t. In this case, 2 denote the intervention, which means that the expected outcome Y or O if we intervene the treatment T as a T, such as a treatment A or a treatment B. Usually, we cannot calculate that kind of intervention, but we should do a randomized control trial to calculate the intervention effect accurately. But that kind of two calculus derived by the Julia Pert professor proposed that we can calculate the causal effect or the intervention effect as a conditional probability, as we saw earlier. Okay? In short, to calculate the causal effect estimation, we should calculate the conditional probability given T as well as given C, right? To remove the backdoor path, we need to calculate the conditional probability given C. That is all. So let's apply that kind of formula to our examples. Let's calculate the treatment A's causal effect. As you can see, the expectation terms denote that the mortality rate given specific treatment and specific condition In short, in this case, 15%. And the probability of the C is a prior for the condition C. In this case, we just calculate the proportion of the mild people among all of the people. That is all. And we also calculate the similar way for the severe condition, 0.3, and the ratio of the severe people for all population. Then we can calculate the accurate causal effect for treatment A and treatment B. In short, if we assume that kind of causal graph, then in this case, treatment B is better. So we resolve the paradox. Let's go back to the generative models again. How can generative models help when causal inference gets more complex? The previous example was easy and it worked well because they assumed that we already observe all of the confounder perfectly. But what if there is a confounder that we cannot estimate? The kind of confounder is a hidden confounder or latent confounder. Usual causal inference method assumes that we do not have an unobserved confounder. But as you know, that kind of assumption is not valid in the real world. We always face unobserved confounder, right? In the real world setting, the assumption is not hold anymore because there might be unobserved confounders such as genetics or lifestyle details or socioeconomic status. If a confounder is unobserved, then we cannot block the backdoor path, right? To block the backdoor path, we need to calculate the conditional probability. But we do not have any information about the unobserved confounder. Therefore, in this case, we cannot block the backdoor path. And it makes some bias. But what if we could somehow estimate or represent the influence of the unobserved confounder? In short, if we had some way to capture that kind of unobserved confounder, then we might be able to perform causal inference again. To do that, we will reinterpret the original causal diagram as this one. Right figure denotes that we can interpret the observed confounder as a subset of an unobserved confounder. In short, unobserved confounder is a kind of a population, while observed confounder is just a sample that we can observe, right? So, by utilizing that kind of philosophy, then we can utilize the generative models to estimate the unobserved confounder, right? As I said earlier, the goal of the generative model is to approximate the ground truth data distribution from only some of the sample data set. In this case, we can interpret that observed confounder is just a sample from the unobserved confounder. Then observed confounder is a sample and unobserved confounder is a kind of a population, right? Then if we apply the generative models, then we can estimate unobserved confounder, right? Remember this density estimation task for the generative models? Generative models learn the population density from some of the observed samples. In short, generative models can be a good solution to handle that kind of unobserved confounder. Similarly, we can reinterpret the causal diagram as this one. observed confounder is a kind of a sample drawn from the population, right? Then, by utilization of generative models, then we can estimate the confounder. There are many kinds of generative models such as LLM and VAE and score-based model. And in this case, we apply the Bayesian autoencoder usually. VAE encode the data set into the latent representation, the G. And the G denotes the hidden confounder in this case. That is all. Now, let's look at a specific research application using generative models for causal inference in the medical domain, specifically focusing on the COVID-19 cluster analysis. During the pandemic, as you know, epidemiological investigators faced immense workload, making thousands of calls to trace contact. A critical question arose: with limited resource, which infection clusters are the most important to focus on? To address this, we built a data set combining information about confirmed COVID-19 cases, the patient's individual's level information, such as gender, age, and symptom. After that, we also collected the cluster-based information, such as a cluster region, or cluster density, and cluster type. Finally, we also construct a data set related to the policy, such as a social distancing level. Using this data set, we aim to answer two types of questions. The first one is a prediction question, and the second one is a causal question. The prediction question is how many more cases will occur in a specific clusters, and how much longer will a cluster persist. Another one is a causal question. How would the number of the cases or duration change if we strengthen or relaxed social distancing level? This requires causal inference. To do that, we propose a new model called causal effect Bayesian transformer. It takes temporal data set, including the individual level information and cluster level information. After that, we estimate the hidden confounder, Z, from the generative models. After that, we calculate the do operation or the treatment effect estimation. Our proposed model CEVT, or causal effect Bayesian transformer, is based on the transformer that there is a well-known model for handling the sequential data set, right? And it is also a generative model designed to capture a time-based hidden confounder. Let's move on to the result section. First, let's look at the prediction performance instead of the causal performance. As you know, MA is a mean absolute error and RMSE is a root mean square error. And that kind of metric is error. Therefore, the lower value is better. As you can see, when we compare our models with other baselines, our model shows a strong result. For example, predicting the duration within an average error of 1.1 days. Similarly, our model also successfully predicts the number of additional confirmed cases with an average of 1.9 cases errors. Then let's move on to the causal inference task. More importantly, what about the causal effect? Our model, CEVT, also estimates the impact of the intervention. In this case, the intervention of the treatment is a social distancing level. See, our model CEVT predicts that each level decreases in social distancing. In short, if we weaken the social distancing, or if we relax the social distancing one level, single level, then it leads to, on average, 0.2 additional confirmed cases and 0.3 additional duration days for each clusters. This kind of causal insight helps policymakers to understand the real impact of their decisions. To conclude, generative model is very important to understand the causal effect. Causal inference is very hard under hidden confounder, but generative models can be a good solver. As you know, LLM is also very powerful generative models, and we also collaborate with Kyung University and UT Austin and Kaiser Permanent to discover the causal graph automatically based on LLM. This concludes my presentation, and thank you for your attention.